Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with lies they eat like comfort food, to disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims? Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the populace with ilkas and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible holding phony temper Bibles like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was normal to have to prove a claim you make, and folks really feel ashamed expressing content that was fake. It's not to say we never make mistakes, it's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road. The reason stay strapped with logic and facts. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact to help the truth grow. Question every claim, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road. The reason.
Hey Brendan, you know what?
What?
You're stupid SJW, you know that, right?
You're an Islamophobe.
You're a terrorist apologist.
You just want to kill brown people.
You just want to defend terrorists.
They wouldn't be terrorists if you hadn't put them in the colonial suppression system.
You're going to blame me, who had nothing to do with colonialism. You're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
No, you're stupid.
No, you're a moron.
You know what? I think you need to be taught a lesson, and I'm gonna try to get you fired from your job.
But you're a bigot. Like that's my job. You're the one who's bigoted. You need to be fired from your job.
Well, you know what? I'll call my social justice warriors to come after you, and they'll get you deplatformed, and they'll get you kicked off of YouTube.
But I thought I was an SJW.
Well, you are an SJW. I meant my minions.
Well, your minions are part of a fascist pig capitalist system.
Oh, and your minions are a bunch of socialist libtards who wouldn't know the truth.
Oh.
Can you all guess what today's show is going to be about?
All right, so we're going to be talking about being civil.
And the rift in the atheist community.
Sounds good.
But, as always, we could do that all day. It kind of feels good a little bit.
It's we can do that for the rest of the show. Just free ball it.
And accomplish absolutely nothing.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, we're going to switch gears. We're going to do our normal spiel right now. Talk a little bit about news and announcements. The one thing I want to talk about announcements-wise is that Road to Reason is currently in discussion with the Atheist Alliance of America. And as you may or may not be aware, because while they've been around for a long time, they really haven't been doing much as of late. But Aaron Ra has been recently elected their president, and there is a real effort to try to really breathe some life and make them an active organization in the atheist community. And we here at Road to Reason will be covering the Atheist Alliance of America, and we are looking to partner with them and have them cover us, send people to us to develop into speaking personalities and learn how to be in front of cameras. On the other hand, we want to help announce what they're doing and drive their program. So we're in the middle of discussing that with them.
Sounds good. Sounds exciting.
I do want to read a couple hysterical pieces, though, that I read on Encyclopedia. I thought this was hysterical. Because it's Atheist Alliance of America, that's AAA. Somebody's got a picture here of a AAA car jump starting. It's got the AAA logo on it. It's like
that might be my car.
Yeah, the AAA attempting to give atheist counseling to a driver of a stranded vehicle in an attempt to make the car work. And I thought that was cute. The best one was, and this is on the history of Atheist Alliance of America. The Atheist Alliance of America was founded in the 1950s, but then it goes on to say, many in the Atheist Alliance disagree with the blatant empirical evidence that the organization was founded in the 1950s, and actually believe that the organization was formed 13.77 billion years ago from simple matter, and it therefore has no purpose behind it other than to allow socialists to protest against the American government under a different banner. I love people. People are awesome.
Oh yeah. No. This is just too good of a read.
And this is also kind of like leads into today's topic too. It's about this is them having fun.
It's lighthearted humor, and it's the fact that they're not calling them morons. They're not calling them. It's not. There's no name calling. There's no mean-spirited aspects to it. It's just making fun of oneself.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. It's just tongue-in-cheek humor. It's not meant to hurt or harm. On to the news. Ray Comfort. What's going on with Mr. Ray?
More bananas?
Well, I'm sure Ray has always got his hands on bananas, but Ray Comfort is claiming with a new movie that he can dismantle atheism with one scientific question, which I find really odd because atheism is in itself a question. So
yeah, I mean, isn't it coming on YouTube or something like that?
Well, yeah, they're going to podcast it, and you can buy, I guess, like online tickets in advance for it. And
okay.
Yeah, and I love it. You know, it's like we're an award-winning TV show, so it's kind of we actually are.
Oh,
so
really?
it's kind of funny to hear. Comfort co-host the award-winning television program The Way of the Master. It's like
The Way of the Master.
Yeah.
Wasn't that? I thought that was one of those like hidden Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon style movies.
It's just kind of weird though, because we're all proud of our award, and then you see he's got an award, and you're like, yeah, maybe these awards don't mean as much.
Awards. I mean, the Olympics are going on, so some awards apparently do matter a lot. But
hey, all awards matter, dude.
Yeah, well, no, only Olympic medals matter.
Fine, be that way.
Yeah. No, because I did hear somewhere that Ray Comfort always, like, whenever he comes out with a movie, he uploads it to YouTube for free to spread his message.
Well, Ray Comfort likes to take claim for doing free things and helpful things all the time. I'm sorry, no. I've never seen the guy do anything for free where he hasn't first profitized the hell out of it first.
Well, he's got to make. I get why he's doing it.
Well, it's disingenuous to not you, but he tries to sell this image of himself as he does these things for free, and he doesn't. For instance, Reason Rally, the man said he was giving out free sandwiches from Subway.
Well, he was told he couldn't.
Well, he could have done it anyway. He could have said, if you were at Reason Rally, contact me, I'll send you your little Subway card. The point is, he also didn't prove that he gave these cards to the homeless either. I mean, time and time again, Ray Comfort says
that last bit's definitely fair. I mean,
he says time and time again, I'm doing this for free. I'm helping people, and I've never seen a single solitary thing he has done where he doesn't have some excuse as to why he couldn't monetize it first.
I think a guy's going to make a living, but
that's fine. Then he should say that. He makes it sound like he's out, giving the shirt off his back to people, and he's like the way of the master. He's selfless and giving away all of his worldly. He's not. He's a profiteer, Bible thumper who I don't think really understands even what's in his own Bible, much less science. Which is really kind of interesting when you think about this whole thing with Ray Comfort dismantles atheism with one scientific question. I had Ray Comfort on my radio show, Debate R and Raw, and he, time and time again on that show, he was totally didn't understand scientific terminology.
Well, that's not a surprise.
Yeah. Now he's got a question. Isn't it amazing that a Christian apologist like Ray Comfort thinks he can dismantle a science-based question with a question? He doesn't. It says Ray Comfort dismantles atheism with one scientific question. It's not an answer. It's a question.
Well, I mean, you can dismantle, philosophically speaking, this might be a little airy, but you can dismantle questions with questions. But basically asking, is it a question worth answering? And then the implication is no.
You can certainly confound the question, but you can't dismantle a question.
True, with a question. No, that has to be more of a dismantling statement.
Yeah. So anyway,
with that,
if you're just dying to learn how atheism is wrong and how it's dismantled, and I do. Yeah, me too. Don't wait. Get your advance tickets now. Go watch Ray Comfort's movie.
I think it'd be fun to just grab a couple drinks, get some popcorn, get a bunch of atheists together, and we just kind of mystery science theater the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as that's not a trademark.
Maybe we could do And this is gonna sound disgusting, but we could like have a camera on us too, where like we're doing the 2 chicks 1 cup reaction thing. Where everybody's
the react video.
Everybody's like, no, Ray didn't go there, did he? Oh, that's disgusting. I can't believe he did that.
I mean,
No?
yeah, we can,
Right.
I don't know. We can figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
All right, what's next?
All right, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about in the news was, I'll pull my notes back up here. Okay, so an atheist group forces Georgia courthouse to remove a longtime Christian flag. And I'm hoping I did not close my notes on that. That would be really unfortunate. Yeah.
Oh, you say it was the case in
Georgia.
It was the Freedom from Religion Foundation, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Here, I'm pulling it up now. Okay. All right. So basically, yeah, Freedom from Religion sued over this. And basically, one of the courthouses in Georgia, and my God, the internet here. See, God's actively working against us. The proof the internet is not working is proof that there's a God.
Or just thick walls.
Or bad internet. But effectively, this is why I really like Freedom from Religion Foundation, because they keep suing and they keep winning. Yes, there are a few cases that they have lost, but more often than not, they make really good legal arguments.
Well, yeah, they have to in order to win.
Yeah, and this courtroom in Georgia is Bryan County. Is the county in Georgia decided that this flag was appropriate in a courtroom. And it was developed by Protestants in the early 20th century.
Oh, it's the cross on the American flags instead of the stars. It's the cross, right?
It's a white flag with a blue field and a red cross. So it's oddly enough, and I'm not do not quote me on making a correlation here, but it reminds me of the Confederate battle flag. You know, where they had the white field, and then like they had the little X up in the corner.
The stars and bars.
Yeah, and that flag was, if you go back and you look at it, was designed by the guy who designed it. Was the white field.
Well, yeah, no, it was an Alabama.
Supremacy.
It was based off like an Alabama military units flag, I thought.
Yeah. And so basically, Freedom from Religion sued because this was blatantly a religious symbol, and its the meaning of it was purely solely religious, and no other symbol to it. So basically, they sued and they won, and they got it removed from the courts. And one of the things I find really interesting when you're looking at this news is, and as I just pointed out, Freedom from Religion, other organizations keep suing. Mm-hmm. It's like counties don't learn the lesson.
Yeah, it's there's these very stubborn kind of like school administrators or county executives that seem to be like, well, no, we're in the right when everyone else is falling around them. It just seems to be almost this willfully ignorant thing of kind of like our Savior will come sometime and rescue us. They're looking for like that shining knight in lawyer's armor.
I think that also that these people maybe have never had anybody question them on it before, and I think like we're going to get into later in our main discussion, like with atheists that are fighting amongst each other. These are probably decent people who think that they're doing the right thing, that this is a good thing because it's godly.
Well, yeah, it's been so ingrained probably from their parents' generations and their parents' generations.
Yeah. So I think that's worth examining. We also got to get ready to go to break here because we're really over. But I wanted to do the joke of the week if you got that real quick, and then talk about Bill Nye. So
this joke is kind of it's a special joke. It's how to tell your own joke. It's a workshop. So basically, it's to yell at whatever group you don't like. You start out with saying, how many of insert group that you hate here does it take to change the light bulb? And when the person says, I don't know how many, you say, none, because they can't change anything. And it's fun. It
even
makes
the
you
joke
roll
is
your
tied
eyes.
into today's topic.
It is. It's almost like we planned it.
I don't know, man. We don't plan things on this show.
Yeah.
So the skeptical thinker of the week is Bill Nye, and this is why he's the skeptical thinker of the week. As many of our viewers will know, Bill Nye was just recently Ken Ham's kind of joke of the century.
Yeah, whipping away.
Noah's Ark museum, or whatever he calls it, exhibit. And there was a 10-year-old girl that approached them, and it was pretty clear that this 10-year-old girl had been coached to go up and say what she said. She goes, I support what Mr. Nye says, or not Mr. Nye, Mr. Ham says, and I believe what he believes. And there was a back and forth, and you could see that Ken Ham was doing everything he could. You almost get a sense that he was like afraid of the words coming out of Bill Nye's mouth, that it might actually influence this girl. And Bill Nye, what he kept saying was, basically, I hope when you grow up that you question everything, that you apply science and reason to things, and I hope that you go to college. And and Ken Ham kept downplaying this. And, every time Bill Nye would say something, Ken Ham had to jump in with, well, what the Bible says, right? And he goes, we got scientists too. And and Bill Nye was just basically, well, we got more scientists that agree with us than you do. It's like, but it was really the way that Bill Nye handled that situation. He did not use the child as a pawn. He was receptive to the fact that she was indoctrinated, and he was trying to use a calm. He didn't get baited into a back and forth with Bill Nye, and with Ken Ham. And I thought that was great. And we are way over, so we've got to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to get into being civil.
Sounds good.
Surprise!
Preventing wildfires. That's all Smokey wants for his 70th birthday.
Thank you, dear. Oh, you're very supple. Just like I was at your age. Back then, I was a sex expert. Used to call me the buttered biscuit. I know about birth control, too. So you can ask me anything, baby.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
Have you had sex in this car yet?
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
A critical thinker is in a frame of mind of always questioning everything, including things they don't necessarily want to question. You may have done some research and satisfied yourself on a position you're sure is right. Good. Now, after a month or two of that, go look at some research that opposes your point of view or challenges the position you've taken. You can even look into it with the idea of poking holes in their arguments if you want, but it would be better to just have an open mind and read it as though you'd never heard or seen anything on the issue before. You may be very surprised what you learn, and if you're doing this right, you will be. Always be open to opposing points of view and counter arguments. That's what critical thinking is all about. And now you know.
They can't hear us, right?
I hope not. Yeah, we were talking crap while you guys were watching the PSAs. So basically, dude, I want to talk about today the rift in the atheist community that we have seen play out, in large part on the internet, but I think we've seen like forums really suffer by lack of attendance and things as well. And talk about, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about how it started or even like what the crux of it is. We do need to discuss a little of it to put it in context, but really want to talk about changing how atheists and skeptics speak to each other.
Yeah.
The street epistemology for atheism. But I do want to start at the beginning of what I believe kicked off this really kind of intense war that we're seeing. And for me, and the way I see it, and I'm not blaming people in Atheism Plus per se, also people's reaction to Atheism Plus could have played a role in it as well. But there came a point where, in the atheist community, I believe we have always been very supportive of gay rights, minorities, women, because we, as atheists and skeptics, recognize that religion has repressed these people.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the atheist community has always had a disproportionately high representation for those faces and voices as to other groups. At some point, a faction of people decided that gay rights, transgender issues, minority issues, race-related issues were more important than the atheist issues, and kind of hijacked and tried to make those at the forefront.
Well, yeah, it's just like Hitchens used to say, and I mean, saying Hitchens is also a very divisive, can be a very divisive name. He said that atheism is just an empty vessel. So, like, you can have fascist atheists, you can have socialist atheists, you can have anarchistic atheists. And so the thing is, and that's actually what I really like about atheism. I do agree that I think the tone of discourse over the past several years has definitely turned angrier, more vicious, more personal.
Yeah, and it's gotten to a point where it's becoming really destructive.
Yeah.
Now, I have picked two individuals, and by no means am I picking on these two individuals, but I'm picking these two individuals because of what I feel that they represent a good example of what is going on. And so my two examples are The Amazing Atheist and Steve Shives, because these two are actually kind of going at each other.
Yeah,
right
because
now.
they are interacting.
Yeah. I actually think both of these people actually care about people.
Oh, yeah.
I think both of these people, at the core of who they are decent people. I think the tactics that they have engaged in and the way that they responded to each other are actually very disruptive.
Yeah, because there's a lot of personal attacks and not a lot of idealistic attacking. Like, instead of saying, well, I think your idea is wrong about feminism because, it's turned into, oh, you support feminism? Well, screw you. And so it's changed from a discourse about ideas to a discourse about people.
Yeah. And we're using labels, and labels are never good because labels dismiss the bigger argument.
They definitely cause a lot of that. I mean, I do think they're necessary to kind of start things off to say, like, hey, listen, this is, not to get into identity politics, saying like, well, as a blank person, I feel like my opinion should be held higher.
Yeah, like if you're a gay person and you have an opinion as a gay person, that is one thing. I'm talking about like that person's a socialist, that person is a feminist, that person is, it's like well, first of all, when you call someone a feminist, to me, your and I's ideas of feminism are probably different. Yeah. And then if I go, oh, they're feminists, you now think I've just bought into every idea you have on feminism, and we skipped the actual issues. And are you saying feminism is a good thing or is a bad thing?
And then what form of feminism are you talking about? Like all the different waves of feminism and such.
And I can dismiss you. Because of one thing you said, I can dismiss you as a feminist.
And it's also turned into a dismissing someone because of someone they associated with at one point or another. Like people are being yelled at for following or being following one particular person for like a day on Twitter, and they get yelled at because they're a politician. Yeah, it's become a very vicious kind of arena.
Yeah, and it's detrimental. Now, I have some issues, and again, I'm not picking on people. These are observations I have. In the world of communicating with one another, we do need to be civil to each other, but we also need to I'm going to say something positive about Steve, but I'm also going to say something a little negative about him. One of the negative things is this thing where he's blocking people that don't agree with him or that don't like him, and there seems to be an encouragement by him to get other people to do it. On the other hand, he made a really great point the other day regarding the amazing atheist, who I also like very much. But he made it in a way that was more of an attack. But if you look at it from a bigger picture, he is kind of right, which is he was talking about, I feel sad because people who are interested in atheism are going to go to the internet and they're going to trip. One of the first things they're going to see is the amazing atheist, and they're going to get that this jerk is, and that's the thing I would actually say to the amazing atheist. Like, I think he plays a jerk sometimes, and he kind of it's a character for him. I don't think he's a jerk in the same way that Steve thinks he does, but he does need to think about the fact that he is impacting the image.
Yeah, once you become one of the main representatives of a certain way of thinking, you do have to take into account that that's what you are. It's the fact that I can't all of a sudden run for president of the United States and I'm trying to avoid Trump analogies here. And all of a sudden I start just punching random people in the face, just walking down the street, but I still try to become elected and say, listen, punching people in the face, it's who I am. People are like, that's not who we want.
Exactly. And the other side of that is that's people's first impressions of what an atheist is.
Exactly.
And we are trying to combat this kind of like rude, angry kind of person mentality.
I think it's interesting especially because the other side is almost always characterized as the wise and patient type. Like you've got these deep thinkers like Deepak Chopra or whatever.
And I think we can do both. I think. And this is what I would remind people in the atheist community out there: what is good for your YouTube page, good for your Patreon accounts, is not necessarily what's good for the big picture of our community.
Oh yeah.
This infighting that gets you 100,000 views does not translate in the long term for what you have publicly professed are your interests in, or what you've shown interest in changing as far as the type of issues that you bring to the plate. So we really do need to think about what's politically expedient, what's good entertainment versus what's really good for the community. And the street epistemology thing I really like about this is, and I'm going to murder his last name.
Magnabosco.
Anthony Maga. It's not that I don't know how to pronounce it, I can't.
Just say M. Anthony M. M, like just the letter M.
M.
Yeah, so continue.
Bosco?
No, sorry, mag, like magnet?
Yeah.
N-A, Bosco. Like
Magna Bosco. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Magna Carta Bosco. It's just really hard for me to pronounce that. I'm sorry, Anthony. But the thing I love about his videos is that he does not debate people. He doesn't do it.
It's not a debate. It's a discourse.
Yeah, and it's largely set up where he asks questions that are posed to make them think about the answers they're going to give.
Yeah,
and that's really powerful. And he did a video once where he showed a street preacher several years ago, and he basically went and started debating the guy. And he went back to the guy and started debating or didn't actually debate him, he just like ran across the guy one day, like several years later, and the guy literally was getting physically aggressive with him.
Yeah.
Because that's like what that type of hostile interaction leads to, and it's a negative lasting effect. And I want to talk about how our communities is digging a bigger hole like that all the time.
And I absolutely love his method, and there is definitely room for that in the world. But I do gotta say that if you just keep asking people why do they think that way, it's harder to get them going in a particular path, because as soon as they arrive, even if they arrive at what you or I would consider the right choice, there can always be someone who just asks them like, well, why do you think that? Why is that right? And it ends up it ends up being determined by whatever values both people end up holding, saying, okay, that's a good argument, whereas somebody else would say that's a bad argument they're giving to it.
And also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
But I'm not saying we should call everyone we meet bigots. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying there does have to be a debate at some point where there has to be a proposition of ideas.
I don't know. Yeah, that proposition ideas is fine, but also it's like, say for instance, like one of the things I like to use as an example is the wage gap argument. Okay, there's a way, some people say that men make more than women, and across the board that's actually correct.
Yeah.
However,
if you just add up every woman's salary and compared it to every man's salary, they're different numbers.
That's correct. However, if you take statistically from reports that I've seen, say a woman who is a doctor in a particular field, you find a man who's in the exact same field, they have the exact same seniority, exact same college education,
same credentials,
statistically speaking, they're making the same money. And now, does this mean that there isn't sexism somewhere in the process? I am always open to the possibility that there is. What I need that person to do is to provide the evidence.
Yeah, I heard when statisticians tried to figure this all out, they got to about, there was a 2 to 5% discrepancy that they just couldn't account for, that they said can be related to sexism. It seems certain that that's what it was. Neither they, who are professional statisticians, nor me, who is not a professional statistician, couldn't really come up with a variable that would account for the 2 to 5%. But that's what it seems to be about.
Okay, and we can always have these discussions without me calling you a feminist apologist and you calling me a misogynist.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think is that there's a lot of anger. I think what's driving this is anger. I will say this, and again, this is not an attack. I think that people like Thunderfoot and Sargon of Akkad make a lot of sense a lot of the time, but a lot of what they have to say gets lost because of how angry and bitter they are about real attacks that happen against them. Yeah. And Rob, one of our co-producer, asked me a great question the other day when I was preparing for the show. He said, well, who do you think is more culpable? And my response is, at this point, it makes no difference. Yeah. Because neither side is going to think that
they're the one who's responsible.
Right. They're going to see themselves as a victim. They're going to see the other side as being aggressive. The question is, do they want to move past this? Now, to roll back to the thing with the wage gap, it's completely okay for me to ask you for evidence and for facts, and it's okay for you to ask me to be open to it. Yeah. And if we're going to make change, if we're going to make policy change socially, we need to have that evidence. It's not enough just to say it is, or there's conventional wisdom or any of these things. If you are right, I want to help you make social change, but I need the tools to do that with. Yeah. And the other thing is, and this is the kicker for me, is that I would bet you $5 that the Amazing Atheist and Steve Shives would agree on the point that I'm about to make. In South Carolina, I believe it's South Carolina, and if I'm wrong, you could pick another state because I know it exists, and I apologize for not actually having the hard data. It is legal for women to have abortions. It is virtually impossible for them to get one because abortion clinics have been shut down.
There's been an uptick in the amount of regulations placed on them.
Regulations, or just terrorizing, or socially not acceptable for a doctor.
That's definitely a thing. Right. There hasn't been really. I don't know about attacks on it. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't mean attacks like bombing. I'm talking about like attacks on like a business, like like other businesses shunning them, members of the community shunning them. But the point I'm making is, I will bet you $5 that Amazing Atheist and Steve Shives would agree that
is bad.
That is an important feminist issue. See, this is the thing. There are real feminist issues in this country. One camp would have you believe that there is no needs. And all the things that they're arguing against are really things I don't necessarily disagree with them on. I think the wage gap argument, as it exists in its current form without the hard evidence coming in, is kind of a useless thing to kind of bait people to get behind.
Yeah, the colloquial argument and version of that is just absolutely horrible. It's not backed up. There's no. It's almost all like anecdotal evidence supplied by whoever decides to pull that, if they want to call it a fact, out.
And I like your word colloquial there. It's a good way to explain it. And we don't need to kill each other as a community over that when we can unify over the fact that we all recognize that women are repressed in this country with reproductive rights in other ways, that women in a lot of southern Bible Belt states don't get the sex education they need, that they're preaching abstinence only, that women don't get the financial support when they're single mothers. There are real feminist issues. And that's funny because I don't see either side talking about that. I see them attacking each other over things like the wage gap.
Yeah, and it's over the wage gap argument itself. And I mean, to kind of talk about the topic, which is what I'm supposed to do. There's like the recent Milo Yiannopoulos being banned from Twitter. Like, you don't have to agree with Milo. It's really, it can be very, very, very hard to agree with what he says. And the thing is, I agree with the fact that he probably broke some Twitter guidelines and whatnot. But the idea that he was kind of removed, it is a very strong sense of him being removed from the conversation, rather than removed because he's being a jerk online. I mean, there's the like ISIS recruiting accounts, there's the neo-Nazi accounts, there's all sorts of like really bad people out there, whose Twitters are fine. And so it seems there's a lot of silencing going on. It seems like if they can't try to control the argument or feel like they could control the argument, it's a lot of that whole deplatforming thing.
Yeah. Bill
Maher was deplatformed. I have yet to come across a guy who is more of this straight up liberal than Bill Maher.
Well, this is one of those things where people have to learn how to behave with each other.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to be tolerant of people that we don't agree with, or even people who really upset us. I can't tell you, in my life, I have changed my opinions on things, and I never thought I would have that opinion. And if I shut down those avenues, even as crass or as uncivil as they are sometimes, I'm actually harming myself as much as anyone else. And when people do things, they call for deplatforming, when they call for false DMCAs, blacklisting people, trying to get people fired from their jobs, lose their Patreon accounts, you're not actually addressing the issue. Doxing them. You're not addressing the issues. You're actually resorting to the very things we accuse Christians.
No, they're physical ad hominem attacks.
Yeah, they're non-substantive.
Yeah, they're attacks on the person rather than on the idea.
You're a bigot. you're a sexist, you're a misogynist, and you're going to pay because we've had enough of you.
Yeah. No, and one of the things that I've heard brought up by only a couple people is the fact that if you continue to call people racist, bigots, all that stuff like that, eventually the meaning behind the word stops. Because, I mean, the amount of people who are called racist and then Donald Trump appears and now people are calling him racist for maybe actual racist statements, I understand it's a hot topic and debate. People feel that it's debatable.
Well, what you're saying to me is, why should I take anything you say serious when you call someone a racist? You've done it so many other times where I already don't agree with it.
Exactly. It's the fact that, like, if I just started calling everybody on my apartment floor a racist homophobe, you're going to be like, as soon as I call anybody else a racist homophobe, you're going to be like, yeah, but that's what you said to your neighbor who lives across the hall from you. Yeah. And then, like, so what?
Well, to go back to TJ, who's the Amazing Atheist, and Steve Shives, I watched an episode, and maybe it was Sargon who did this. I could be wrong. There's just so much of this vitriol out there.
Yeah.
There was a video where Steve Shives has his wife on one of his shows, and she starts going, well, you know, you have a sexist book collection, your music is sexist. And he's like, yeah, honey, you're right, and, you know, I'm sorry, and it's because I'm a guy. And the response was, Steve Shives is pee-whipped, and he is a cuckold.
Yeah.
Do you think Steve Shives is ever going to go, yeah, guys, you're right, my wife has me whipped, and I'm a cuckold, and you're right, and I'm going to change my ways? I mean, how does that, even if, and I have to tell you, and I love Steve, I think I think he makes a lot of great points. There's some things I don't like he does. And I have to say, like, I don't really like the way she was talking to him. But I would have enough respect for Steve as a human being to frame it completely different.
Well, and not to, I mean, the weird thing is,
degrade him.
Yeah, it's something obviously that makes him feel uncomfortable. I mean, I that's one of the few videos I've seen of Steve Shives, because I mean, I'm not really active in that kind of area of community. But I remember it being like this. I was like, geez, like making fun of that aspect didn't really seem right, even in within good senses.
Yeah, and it's not and it's good for those internet clicks. It's good for look at how stupid Steve Shives is. What does it accomplish?
No, nothing.
It accomplishes nothing. And on the other side, when Steve goes on, an Amazing Atheist is, you know, an avowed racist who hates black people. It's like, you know, I don't. If you listen to what TJ's saying, he doesn't hate black people. He's frustrated with certain aspects of what we will call, this, for lack of a better word, the social justice, you know, warriors that he finds offensive. And Steve and TJ both say something a lot that I find really interesting. I don't care.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you guys do care. One of the reasons you're making your videos is you do care. You care about people. You care about social justice issues. You actually do, both of you care about what people think about you. That's why you're making videos to counter the other's side.
And that's why you're on YouTube. Like, you obviously do care about it a little bit. And I gotta say, one of the interesting things that came up is that this seems to be very internet-centric, is the fact that it seems very akin to the whole internet culture of just because the person on the other end is not a human being to you when you're just typing away or on camera in front of your YouTube audience. It turns into these just things, these people, not even
personalities.
Yeah, and they don't seem like an individual human with thoughts, dreams, all that stuff like that. It makes one-dimensional caricatures out of them.
I totally agree with you. I think that's the right way to put it.
And it's just that extended over the discussion of atheism, because you don't get attacks like that in those highfalutin debates between like Michael Shermer and Dinesh D'Souza, or Hitchens against William Lane Craig, or something like that. It comes off as very different than me yelling at some anonymous stranger over Twitter.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good idea, or make a good point when you say caricatures. You've reduced that person to a meme in some ways, and those people sometimes reduce themselves, and that's one of the things they have to think about, how they're speaking. Like it's like are you setting yourself up for having an internet retaliation against you? Now, it's funny because I've also noticed, and this is not a condemnation or an endorsement, but I think in the Steve Shives Amazing Atheist kind of back and forth, I think that Amazing Atheist understands a little better about how to handle negative personal attacks, which is he kind of laughs them off, embraces them. Steve, I think, tends to take them a little more to heart. I was watching, was it the Drunken Podcast? And
the Drunken Peasants?
Or Drunken Peasants, yeah. And they, some guy was doing a video, and he was just like saying something really horrible. He was like, this is a bunch of man beards sitting around, like circle jerking or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, we're gonna like use that clip in the intro for our show, man.
Yeah.
They're almost like kind of proud of that personal attack, and you de-teeth that attack.
Oh, exactly, and that's one of the wonderful things about humor and satire and stuff like that. Is once you make fun of yourself, it becomes instantly disarming.
Yeah, it helps.
And when in connection to the caricature comment, when you get on YouTube and you get on the internet and you try to have your own show, people, you've got to create your own brand. Like what we were talking about is you have to have a recognizable, you have to sort of turn yourself into a meme, into a caricature, in order to kind of cultivate an audience, and instead of, I mean, people have like vlog channels and all that stuff like that to show a more personal side, but then again, that's all marketing. Like they're always, if they're almost always still quote unquote in character, right, even in those sort of supposedly candid moments.
Why would you invite the World Wide Web into your home as if these people know you, when you couldn't point one of them out and say that that's so-and-so? You've never met these people in your life.
No, exactly.
So, and this is one of the things we have to really kind of focus on, in my opinion, as a community. We really do need to focus on the fact of accepting that we all have butt hurt.
Yeah.
That, if I'm Steve Shives, I'm going to have to accept the fact that I'm always going to be angry at the Amazing Atheist. If I'm Amazing Atheist, I'm always going to have to accept the fact that Steve Shives has said some really inaccurate and horrible things about me. And I'm going to have to, in both these cases, I'm going to have to move past it. I'm going to have to ask myself what's better for the greater good. And I'm just going to have to learn to get along with people that I don't like. That's the world we live in. That's the real world. It's like, we all have to work with that coworker that we can't stand. We all have that neighbor, who borrows our tools and doesn't return them.
Or
we all got that crazy dude down at the end of the street who's blasting music to the wee hours in the morning. We just want to kick his ass.
Well, it depends upon what he's playing. Like, if it's some good stuff.
That's true. You want to have an argument over what's like culturally acceptable music? No, I'm just.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. Like that can turn into a conversation all of its own.
We have to learn to take it on the chin, and we also have to learn. And this is the big kicker for me. Like when I made that reference about the abortion clinics, we have to learn to accept. Give you a good example. Let's say that I'm in a room with someone who's a hardcore feminist. And I say, well, my dear, I was thinking this. You go, that's a sexist term.
My dear, yeah.
My dear, okay. Maybe from your perspective it is. That person didn't mean to demean you. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you don't have a right to bring that up. But are you going to, when that person does not back down, Are you going to call for them to be blacklisted? Are you going to call for them to be deplatformed? Or are you going to say, okay, you know what, I don't like your use of deer, but I do like what you have to say on religion and how it affects this group. Why don't we focus on that? And since we're not going to agree on this other thing, why don't we work on what we can instead of I'm going to make you sorry that you have crossed that line with me.
Yeah, and I think because it's sort of created a definite divide between, so to speak, what one could call like a casual atheist and an anti-theistic atheist, like someone who's like, yeah, let's talk about, or a secular atheist whose whole deal is just to say, let's make sure the government and religion don't mix. But then you can have an anti-theistic atheist who's like, yeah, let's make sure they don't mix, and then let's destroy them and bring them down. And then you can have the casual atheist who's like, yeah, like there's no God, but like, whatever.
Well, we have to pick our. I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah, no, and so it becomes really interesting because again, this relates back to the title of our show. It's Be Civil. Like, one of the, so to speak, like minorities within the atheist community is the pro-life atheist. And it's been really interesting because I've gone to some kind of atheist get-togethers, and if anyone brings up being pro-life, they immediately become either the center of the conversation or the whipping boy of the group. And it ends up being a very unproductive conversation.
Exactly. This is where we talk about having to pick our battles. And I go back to that thing where someone says, lady or dear or something like that. And that person just starts obsessing on that as being sexist, or that's a privileged thing, or whatever. Who are you trying to convince? Who are you? Who is this going to work? Are you going to kowtow this person into compliance with your ideology? Did you stop, as you pointed out? You say you either become the center of the attention, or it gets derailed. What are you there to talk about in the first place? If what you're there to talk about is separation of church and state, don't turn it into a battle over the fact that he used the word deer.
Exactly, and I think it goes a long way to talk about intention and taking a step back and taking a breath and being like, you know what? I'm not going to assume you mean ill intent.
Right.
And then I can say, well, did you know that kind of Madeir comes from a word that puts down women? And then somebody like, no, I didn't know that. And then you can kind of get them to maybe gradually phase that out.
Or not.
Maybe not. Yeah, but the thing is to get your point out there, and the way to get your point out there is not to run up to strangers, grab them by the shoulders, and scream it at them.
Yeah. Or to just categorize that person. It's because you use that, you are therefore X. You are therefore representative of this repressive group.
And because you're X and I'm Y, you are unreachable.
Right.
Like you live in X camp. Like I can't convince you. I can't associate with you. You're the bad guy.
Or you're only reachable once you admit you're X and you're wrong, and you have some penance, and you have to answer.
And you feel sorry for it.
Yeah, and you feel sorry for it. And it's like
there's a retributive. Let's see if I can.
I was actually gonna say it, but then you confused me.
Yeah, and it comes across as being very retributive, and people being like, okay, I need my pound of flesh to carry on the conversation.
It's like I can pick all day long these kinds of battles that have happened, and I won't, because it doesn't serve the bigger picture. No. We need to go back and we need to we need to start talking to ourselves and to each other about being civil. We have so much to do as a community to make a real difference in this world. We need to really think about the battles who we're fighting. If we can get along with Christians that also support separation of church and state, then why can't we tolerate our own community that has even less extreme views that also support separation of church and state?
Yeah, and I think it starts with names, because it's hard to, I really enjoy the idea of humanism. Someone I know very, very well put it this way. So it said, every good thing on earth has been done by a human. and that's why I'm a humanist. It's like, yeah, all the charitable work by nuns, those are the nuns doing the work. God isn't playing dress up as nuns. And then it turns into this the idea that, okay, yeah, we are all we have. Let's go for it. But then you're trying to then say, well, we need to help improve the lives of atheists in like Bangladesh, where they're getting hacked to death, in Turkey, in which they're under attack, and you need to change kind of the direction. You got to say, okay, let's help the atheist movement out. And then some people feel they don't need to, so they go and they call themselves secular humanists or something like that. And it turns into, we end up factioning out ourselves.
Yeah.
And then once we need to rise all as one,
we are our worst enemy.
We've already split ourselves up. We've shot ourselves in the foot before we can even get out the door.
And we can actually see the results of this after the Atheism Plus debacle. And that's to say that there was, I'm not going to sit here and point the finger purely at Atheism Plus, people's reactions to it. There were certain core elements of it that I thought were really bad, but that's my personal opinion. How they reacted and how people reacted to them are huge factors in this. They're all worth examining. And this is one of those things where I want to say Road to Reason is not interested in hosting debates between atheist factions, but we are interested in hosting civil discussions.
Yeah.
If Steve Shives wants to come on with Amazing Atheists to hash out their differences in a peaceful and constructive manner, we will help build that platform, construct a safe space to piss people off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're on public access, so they can't swear. So it'll be fine, right?
And as the lower third says, let's start a massive infight. To ensure that we prevent that from happening again, our community does need to start looking at how this happened. We need to look at tools like the street epistemology techniques that are out there, and start incorporating those in our community. And we also have to learn to, I hate to say it, turn the other cheek.
Yeah, no, I was very, very tempted to bring it up about 3 times during this conversation, and I was just like, I gotta wait for the right moment. You nabbed that.
I'm going to say this. Thunderfoot, Steve Shives, Amazing Atheists, all you folks, I love you all. I don't agree with all of you on everything. But you also need to start being nicer to each other. Because when people go on the internet and they see these flame wars, this is what is defining our community today. And it does not look good, even if it feels good, and even if it's working for you at this moment. So give each other a virtual hug. Didn't it feel good? And and start changing the direction of the discussion. We need all you folks in the fold. Like I said, you're a diverse group. I don't agree with you on everything. Nobody agrees with everybody on everything, but we need to start learning to get along. You all are very intelligent people. You make a difference. And remember that. You make a difference for better or for worse, and Road to Reason would like to help bridge the gaps that are out there.
And don't forget to like us on Facebook, subscribe, check us out on Ustream, or if you're in the Fairfax, Virginia area, you can catch us on the television.
Or just come in. And until next week,
this has been Road to Reason.
Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century.